Okay, the records are now open. Okay. Let me check in for a moment. Okay, I'm seeing Origination was actually in this galaxy, but it was in Galactic Center. Okay, so what I'm seeing, okay, and this is going to sound strange, but I'm seeing that you were part of I think, a Galactic Council that used to meet in a star system called Altair. Okay, so I don't think Altair is where you stayed, but it's where you originated from. Okay, so that would be Altair. Altair is in the Eagle constellation. If you look at a star map, I have one on my wall over here. You'll see Galactic Center is actually between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So it's between those two constellations. Altair is kind of located up here. Okay. And actually the Aquilla constellation is up here. And Altair is just like right around here. Okay. Altair was not really a physical location. It's a star. It's where a lot of the galactic councils used to meet. Okay, so a lot of them, and there would be different councils for different purposes, for different developments, across the, the galaxy. Okay, I was part of one of those councils too, so I'm very familiar with Altair. A lot of people don't even talk about it, but I see it in the records, so I talk about Altair. Altair is, when I see Altair, I see cities in the sky. They're kind of like light cities. Like I said, it's not a physical place. I think that's where you report back to in between lives. Okay, because I know that was one of your questions. Okay, so I think when you're in between incarnations, whether it be on Earth or some other star system, you're heading to Altair to, I think, debrief your council. Okay, I'm trying to see a little bit more detail about the council itself. Okay, I do see kind of mostly humanoid looking individuals. Okay, so I don't see any reptilians or anything that looks out of place. I don't. Some of the Sirian councils may have reptilians or Orion councils, but this one's mostly higher humanoid beings. Okay, so these were light beings. They had a humanoid shape because I think that's how they like to identify themselves, but they're light beings. They're like angelics. Okay, so you're actually kind of a higher galactic angelic soul. That's your origination. Okay, and I think this group had to do with, they keep saying transformation, like not just transmutation, but transformation. So I think your assignment was to go to different star systems and assist them with some sort of transformational process. Okay, very bright golds and light blue, bright gold, maybe some oranges. I don't know. It was kind of like a different aura. It's more associated with Altair. Okay. But I do think you've had incarnations in different systems in order to help them with a transformational process that they either want to go through or have to go through. Okay. Now, what kind of, do you do any kind of spiritual practice, or what kind of spiritual practice do you do now? You're just starting.
In terms of, I'm just starting out.
You're just starting out, so you're not like putting up a shingle and saying, yeah, I'm a light activation, shaman, or, anything like that, or...
I mean, I've got crystals. I guess I'm just starting off. Really.
Yeah, you're starting off, okay. You're a very high vibrational soul, but I think here on Earth, because you're young, and you're still just awakening, it's probably going to take you a few years to kind of settle into... what you're going to do spiritually. It took me a few years. I just, when I first awakened, I don't know, I was just guided to take every spiritual class I can possibly get on my hands on. It was anything from remote viewing to working with essential oils. It's just, whatever came across my path, because I think it was just I needed to remind myself of the information. Okay, I already knew it, but it's like you get to that point where you're like, you know what? I know I've learned this before, but I need a refresher because I've been on Earth for a while and I've forgotten. So Lyra was your first assignment. I see you mostly. I think what you did in that life, okay, and it's going to sound kind of boring, but you helped to set up the Lyran councils. So because you kind of help them, I think, to model them or formulate them similar to the councils in Altair. Okay. So that's basically what you were doing there. So you didn't incarnate as a Lyran. You didn't like live on the planet. You would visit the planet. You would spend time on their planets. I mean, I think you did this in all of their planets. And it was not just Lyra, it was also Vega. So the Vega planets also got, some instruction from you as well. And so you didn't get that involved with the Lyran Wars. Because when you were doing this was long before the Lyran Wars hit. It was. I think you would go to visit and maybe give them additional trainings, but it wasn't like a super long-lasting assignment for you. Okay. Now, what kind of work do you do today? What do you do for a living?
I'm a scientist.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see a lot of scientists that have origins from Altair.
Oh, okay.
Because I think they have very analytical. They're very analytical thinking, and they. And I think it's just they're kind of regulatory in nature because they kind of oversee a lot of processes usually, and so I think I did I was in the science field for 30 years, okay, and I have a connection with Altair. I'm actually from Arcturus, but I spent a lot of time in Altair, but. And then I had another client who was from Altair, and she worked in pharmaceuticals. She was a scientist so so I see this theme a lot. Okay, it's either like some sort of law or it's science usually. Okay. Yeah. So you did, I think, some sort of, basic, governmental administrative work, initially. Okay, this was in Lyra. When the wars hit and Lyra got destroyed, it was devastating to everybody in the Galactic Center. All these beings, they were just devastated because they thought the experiment was over. It was supposed to be an experiment, a descent into physicality, and all of us were devastated. It was just kind of like, what in the heck just happened? These co-creators created this beautiful star system. Lyra and Vega were just absolutely stunningly beautiful. And then Draconians came and just wiped them out. Wiped out 50 million Lyrans. Okay. It was devastation like we've never seen ever in this universe. It's like the worst ever. Even Atlantis, even Maldek or Orion, couldn't hold a candle to what happened in Lyra. It was pretty bad. So then your assignment changed. Okay, so it was there were some Lyran survivors. Actually there was quite a few. They did have, I think, enough technology to have starships, and so they evacuated as many people as they could on board the starships and took off to other star systems. It was a rough journey. We were constantly being attacked by draconians, having to hide out from them, having to be chased by them. It was pretty bad. So I think your assignment at the time changed. Okay, so you ended up, I think, setting up a way station of sorts in the constellation that was next door to Lyra called Cygnus. Okay. Cygnus is it's called the Swan constellation. So it seems like you have this association with bird constellations, because first was the eagle and now it's the swan. But Cygnus is a big constellation. It's pretty big. Quite a few stars. Deneb is the biggest star there. The thing about, and I think the reason why you and your council picked Cygnus was because it was located next to Lyra, so Lyrans would naturally end up there, on their way to whatever. And there was a big black hole in the middle of Cygnus. So the Draconians weren't going to go near it because they had huge Death Star-looking ships, and the gravitational pull of the black hole would just pull them in. So it was kind of like, I think, common knowledge that they weren't going to go near that star system. So it was a good place for, these very tired, Lyran refugees to hide out in. Okay. So I think when you and your team, your soul group, so this is your soul group, so these are the people that you've been working with. So this is when you and your team went to set up a way station on one of the planets off the star system of Deneb. Okay. And I think somehow it was kind of like a holographic reality, but you were able to cloak it so that reptilian ships weren't able to detect it. Okay, I know that sounds kind of weird and crazy, but that's what the records are showing. I was always wondering why they never found, these way stations. And I think because you guys cloaked it. It was kind of like the Lyran refugees and their smaller starships could find it, but not the really big draconian ones. So in that lifetime, this was like your first semi-physical incarnation. Okay, I'm saying semi because you were kind of like a crystalline being. Okay,
Right.
yeah. So you weren't quite, human. I'm not even sure if you even looked human. I'm just thinking you incarnated as kind of a Cygnus. I don't know. It was kind of like you were there as a Cygnus representative, but I'm kind of almost seeing like an avian look about you. You kind of looked not quite like the blue avians. They're from another system, but you kind of looked a little bit avian because I think that was a familiar image for Lyrans. Lyran people had avian beings in their system. They had cat people in their system. Now Cassiopeia, which was another way station, had the more cat-looking people. Okay, that were. So this is the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm learning along with you. Okay. So the Cygnus people looked kind of bird-like because it was a bird constellation. So it made sense. Okay. So you were there. You kind of had a humanoid shape, but you had like a bird head and wings. Okay. And I think you were kind of more or less like a triage nurse. Okay. And I know that sounds kind of basic, but it's probably a very basic description of what you did. But your role was to help these people to get the healing they needed, the supplies they needed, whatever it was that they needed to be able to continue on their trip, okay, to go to their ultimate destination. So Cygnus wasn't really appropriate. It wasn't an appropriate place for them to make as a permanent home, because it was kind of holographic. There was no, it was kind of like it was just set up temporarily. And so this was, I think, when you first started doing some energetic healing work. Okay, it wasn't really physical. I think they had some Vega folks that were, really, I think, talented in physical healing that maybe assisted, but you and your team just did deep level energy work.
Okay.
So this tells me a little bit about where your skill sets lie. Okay. A lot of the people there were suffering from PTSD. They were traumatized. They lost everything. Didn't know where they were going. So it was a lot of psychological work you had to do too. Okay. After Cygnus, okay, I am then seeing your next assignment. Okay, so you're kind of a traveling soul. Okay, you've been around. Next assignment was Sirius. Okay. Now, because Sirius was a little bit lower dimensional, you had to incarnate into Sirian form. Okay. So this was your first really true human or humanoid type of incarnation. Some of the transformational work that you were doing on Sirius was to help them to unify their star system, because initially when when the Lyran refugees arrived in Sirius, they mostly camped out in Sirius A, because Sirius A was uninhabited, but Sirius B and C were, and so there was conflicts initially between the cat people and the Lyran people that were on Sirius A, and maybe some of the reptilian groups in Sirius C, and some of the amphibian groups that was on Sirius B. And so your role was not just to set up a council, but to set up the council. Okay, so first it was to try to unify the system so that there was going to be no more conflicts. And then there was the Sirian High Council that was created that was going to have representatives from all three stars until Sirius C got destroyed. Okay, so Sirius C got destroyed, so now it's just Sirius A and B. So that was your role in that life. Okay, I think after that was set up, okay, you had another incarnation in Sirius, and your role changed again. Okay, so you've had some really interesting lives. It's kind of like you always had like a really big purpose with each of your lives. It was always like, okay, I'm going to do this in this place, I'm going to do this in this place. But then you don't stay, it's like you're not like, oh, I love Sirius so much, I'm just going to stay here. You're very, I think the place that you spent the most time in, honestly, was the Pleiades, because they had a lot of stars. Okay, so I do think the last place you were at before you came here to Earth was the Pleiades. But it's like you would go to these different places and you would just do like a mission, and then it was like, okay, we're all set, we're done. Sirius, I think the Sirians kind of felt like they lost a lot of information during the wars. Okay, so these were people that were practical, and they felt like, you know what, we used to have a lot of information when we were still in Vega. It's like we need to do something to, recollect all this information. Okay, and a lot of it was scientific or biological. I mean, there's a lot of information they felt was lost. So you were part of a scientific team that used to travel to other star systems. So this was you becoming more and more human. Okay, so So now that the councils were set, Sirius was unified. It was time to get Sirius on their feet. Okay, so you, I think, and I'm seeing that you were like kind of the head scientist in a lot of these teams, or you would co-manage a team with maybe a couple of other scientists, but you would go to, I would say various star systems throughout the galaxy, maybe doing some studies on board some, planets, and then coming back and bringing that information back to Sirius. This was a multi-generational project, so I think the Sirians continued it after you left, so after you had your last incarnation, but it was an important one because the Sirians wanted to create a school. So they didn't want to just keep the knowledge, they wanted to share it. Okay, Sirians are all about, they're kind of like they're all about being of service to others, and the best way to do that is to be a healer, in their eyes, is to be a teacher or a healer, so I think, some Sirian ascended masters, they were usually healers and teachers, like Jesus, for instance, or Buddha, they came in with certain gifts. So a school was developed, and I think your incarnation there ended right around the time the school was established. So your mission there was finished. You felt like, okay, I'm done with Sirius, and then you moved on to Procyon. Okay, Procyon is a small star. It's located very close to Sirius. Sirius is in Canis Major. Procyon's in Canis Minor. Procyon had Lyran people that I think they went really gung-ho with technology. They were so concerned about survival because they were just they were a much smaller star system than Sirius, so they ramped up on their technology, but they had forgotten their spirituality. Yeah, so your role there was again to help them transform from kind of a one-sided society where it was all about technology and star exploration into a more well-integrated society where they started integrating spirituality and healing. Okay, and so there you were a teacher. Okay, so you were a spiritual teacher. From that lifetime, I don't see any Orion involvement. I think there was other star groups that were assisting Orion, so Orion was not on your periphery. Okay, then you started focusing on the constellation of Taurus. Okay, and I do see that you're a Taurus. So I think most of your latter off-world lives was in the constellation of Taurus. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's why you chose to incarnate under that star sign, because it represents your current energy. But I do see. I don't see Aldebaran. Aldebaran was already established. It's an old star system. You did do some work on the Pleiades, which is the star cluster close to Aldebaran. So Aldebaran is the star. That's the biggest star in Taurus. And then there's the stars that make up the horns of the bull. That's the Pleiades. Okay, so they're kind of similar to the Pleiades. Taurus is a huge constellation. It's got a lot of stars, a lot of star clusters. The Pleiades was kind of a mix of Lyra and Vega refugees, so in some ways they were similar to Sirius, because Sirius was also a mix of Lyra and Vega refugees. However, the Pleiadians, they didn't look Sirian, okay? They looked Pleiadian, but they had blue skin because of the Vega influence in their genetics, but they didn't develop like a Sirian look. Okay, so if you were to look at a Hyadian, without looking at the skin tone, you would think they were Pleiadian. Okay, but they weren't. The Hyades was a star system that initially was very focused on craftsmanship. So there was no science, no technology. It was basically, so they were kind of like the opposite of Procyon. Okay. This civilization was just mainly focused on fine craftsmanship. So they were focused on creating beautiful things that were functional. That was, I think, what you ended up doing. You helped to bring technology to this star system, because they didn't even have starships. They were just kind of like, they were a very kind of closed society. I think they had a lot of influence from Vega. They felt like, hey, we're creative people. We just want to stay creative. We don't want to be traversing the stars. But you did, I think, help to bring some technology to this system. I mean, it was you and I think several other members of your soul group. You and your soul group, I think, did a lot of projects together. A lot of times with certain groups, I see some that I think they just kind of go off on their own. And, they just kind of do their own thing. And then they come back and they report to each other. Your soul group, on the other hand, like to work together.
So we're still together?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So I think your soul group, like maybe you didn't have every single incarnation together, but you did a lot of incarnations together. So I think it's just you all like to work as a team. Okay. So this is kind of unusual, because it's usually like one member of the soul group would go to some star system, and then they would experience that star system, and then they would come back and report. Okay. With you guys, you all come together and report. You're all like, oh, this is what I learned, or this is what I saw, or this is what's happening on this planet, and that sort of thing. Okay. So from the Hyades, the next star system was Apollonia. Okay, and I'm probably missing some star systems, because you're an ancient soul. You've been incarnating for millions of years. Okay, but these are the major ones that I'm seeing in the records. But Apollonia is a small star system that's located close to the Pleiades. It's not part of the Pleiades, but it is close to the Pleiades, also in the Taurus constellation. That, like Hyades, was focused on creativity. You were there to help them create some structure, because they were kind of like a free-flowing, I don't know, kind of avant-garde. They were just kind of like, we just want to paint. We just want to write poetry. We don't care about anything. Now, I think Hyades did have some structure, so you didn't have to help them with that. You were helping them with technology. But with Apollonia, you were helping to develop some sort of, maybe not governmental is the right word, but societal structure. So that they could be a little bit more successful. Because they were just kind of willy-nilly just doing stuff, and it was, there was no evolution, after a while on that star system. Okay. And this is also my first time seeing this, so you're showing me, your records are showing me some things. Okay. Then there was the big project. Okay, that was the Pleiades. Okay. Yeah. So Pleiades. Pleiades has it's a big star cluster. It's about 8 light years across. Okay. What kind of science do you do? I'm just curious.
Well, at the moment, I studied something different.
Okay.
I did a nutrition.
Oh, gotcha.
So I
Okay.
have masters in nutrition biochemistry, but I am currently what am I doing? We're developing a patch to deliver vaccines rather than using the needle and syringe. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, but I am hopefully moving back to the nutrition because I want to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing that the vaccines is not a good fit. Yeah. for many reasons, but yeah, not a good fit. But yeah, people definitely need help with nutrition because a lot of our food has been modified and adulterated. So people are developing diseases because of it, and the biggest one being obesity. Okay, so so that we definitely need some help. Earth humans need some help in that area. But I was just curious because I was just thinking, wow, you did so many different. I mean, you did like different things in these star systems. So I think you're a versatile soul, but I think you're very analytical. I think you help bring like some sort of structure and order to every incarnation that you have. But then there was the Pleiades. I think most of your lifetimes was in the Pleiades. Okay. The Pleiades is 8 light years across. It's huge. It's an even bigger constellation, which is Taurus. I'm seeing that I think you had incarnations in almost every system there. I think the first place you started was Taygeta. Okay. Each of these star systems have specialties. Okay. Taygeta is its specialty was technology. So that's kind of a good fit for you. Okay. I think most of the work you did was Taygeta and Electra because they were the most technological star systems. Alcyon was also pretty technological, but some of the other smaller systems were more focused on healing or spirituality or whatever. It's just they were more divine feminine oriented. It's funny because I do see like in between these incarnations you always go back to Altair. It's like you always go back there. Now is this kind of lining up with what you saw in your in between life reading?
Well, in the in between lives, I just saw myself as an Arcturian, and I was part of the Arcturian Council. Yeah, I guess. And I wasn't supposed to incarnate anymore. Yeah, but I did it anyway, and I think they were upset with me, but then they came around to it. Yeah.
I don't see Arcturian energy with you though. That's kind of interesting. And I'm an Arcturian myself, so I recognize Arcturian. So this might have been another project. Okay. Like I said before, I was probably missing some star systems. So Arcturus was probably on the list. Okay. But I don't see prominent Arcturian energy, meaning that when I see your auric field, I see these yellows and blues that are kind of associated with Altair, but I see multiple incarnations.
Okay.
So I think what you got was a piece of one incarnation.
Yep. And
that was it. But I'm seeing that you were part of councils in a lot of different star systems. But I'm trying to see where Arcturus might have came even before Lyra, because Arcturus is older than Lyra. Okay, so that was probably your first assignment. Okay. And then and there is no linear time when you're in these higher dimensions, so it's very possible that you probably had Earth incarnations during this time. But then you had incarnations in you had sort of an incarnation in Lyra, and then you kind of went to these different star systems. It's like you're kind of like a parallel soul, but you're not a parallel soul. I think when you parallel souls, they have multiple lives in multiple star systems at the same time. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question.
Yeah. I think you choose like a star system. You might have various interdimensional aspects of yourself in that star system, but you don't spread yourself too thin, okay? Because then that will detract from your mission. It's not like you're very picky and choosy about the projects that you do. You're just such a loving, giving soul that you'll volunteer for everything. You know, I mean, it's kind of just how you are. And it's even hard to pinpoint your Earth lives because you've had quite a few. I wouldn't say hundreds, but I would say maybe 75. I would say there's quite a few. Almost every civilization. Yeah, almost every civilization. And most of the work that you did was you were helping to push the technology forward on Earth. So remember, you came from the Transformation Council. So every incarnation you had was pushing the evolution forward a little bit. So most of the work you did was technically oriented on Earth. Okay. So you didn't have like the traditional healer path where you were a shaman or you were whatever. You were always, I think, involved with some sort of engineering or some sort of biology. Usually biology. I think that's your specialty. Okay. I think part of what your mission is, as far as here on Earth right now, is to help repair the human DNA. But you're going to do it not through vaccines, but through food.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it seems like, and I can speak to this because I've had one illness after another the last few years, and it's just getting kind of old. It's kind of like, and a lot of it I think is attached to diet. Since I've really cleaned up my diet a lot, I've been feeling a lot better, and knock on wood, the cancer hasn't come back, nothing has come back, so so I think there is a key component with diet, but the way that we're doing all this factory farming and everything else, that it's just unsustainable and it's unhealthy.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's something that you're having to do that is going to maybe bring the Earth food back to the way it was supposed to be. Like maybe bringing it back to a heritage strain, like of certain, rather than these altered strains that we currently have, these modern strains that, our physiology just can't process, So with the kind of work that you studied for, not the work that you're doing now, but the work that you studied for, is that mostly dealing with agricultural science, or is it mostly dealing with helping people with their diets? I'm just kind of curious. So
yeah, it's more like helping people with
their diets. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of looking at their physiology, what's going on with them, and then maybe picking out the best diet that's going to help them to heal. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I would say, you should probably go back to that. That would help a lot of people. Vaccines. Yeah. I'm an anti-vaxxer, so I'm probably not the best person to talk to about vaccines. But what got you into that? Just it was available, or?
Yeah. I couldn't find a job in the nutrition field when I came back. I actually was in America. That's where I studied.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
I came back here, and I couldn't find a job, and that was available. So I had skills, lab skills, pretty much.
Yeah. So kind of had to settle for something that wasn't quite your great love, but yeah, no, I understand that. I have a background in environmental science, and I became a food inspector because that's what was available, you know. And it's funny, it was not a great love, but I did it for quite a few years, 18 years, and you know, but it was kind of like a lot of the principles that they were having us implement didn't really align with my belief systems, you know. So after a while, I felt like I just had to leave, you know. So I retired last year, and you know, so now I'm devoting myself to my spiritual work. I think in your case, you're probably going to change jobs. You know, I see that. You know, I think you even see that. I do think I kind of see you working for a more progressive company at first that is going to be, I think, very focused on developing diets and foods that are going to be helpful to people, and that's what's going to attract you to that company, because I don't think you just want to work for any food company that's just interested in the bottom line. Okay. And there are, I think, more and more organic companies that are developing different types of foods and things that are going to be much more healthy for people, especially people with certain, you know, physical issues. Okay. You know, so I see you getting involved with that. You are a second wave volunteer. You're kind of tail end of second wave. So you came here to change the system. That's your generational mission. Okay. So you're a system buster. So you're going to bust the old food system, the old dietary system. That's what you came here to do. Okay. Because that's the biggest struggle here on Earth right now is the diet and nutrition. Like I said, I was a victim to it too. You know, I had a stressful job. You know, I would eat a lot of sugar and caffeine just to get me going, and it destroyed my health. You know, and you know, so now I quit the caffeine, I quit the sugars, I quit all the, you know, I cleaned up my diet, and you know, I'm doing a lot better. You know, it's like it's even mental. You know, so I think what you're doing is really, really important. Okay. As far as lifetimes on Earth, there was so many, I couldn't even really like pinpoint. I know you had life in Atlantis. I'm also seeing Lemuria. I'm seeing Egypt, definitely. I'm seeing Rome. I'm seeing I don't know, just I'm seeing Spanish conquistadors. I'm seeing South America. I'm just seeing a lot of lives, and it's really difficult for me to pinpoint them because there was so many. It was like 75 lives on Earth. That's a lot for a starseed. That's why I think you're kind of like a super starseed. You're like beyond the typical starseed that comes here, kind of just to transmute energy and bring love and light. You know. You came from a very specialized soul group that incarnated in many systems across this galaxy, including Arcturus. Okay, so I just don't pick up Arcturus as origination point for you. Okay, I think you came from a bigger place than that. Okay, but I do see that I don't see much in Andromeda. I think that's your future assignments, actually. That's where you're headed to next.
Cool.
I think you'll have one more life here on Earth that will be probably New Earth. So, and I think in that lifetime you're going to continue the mission that you started here, but it's going to be more on an energetic DNA level rather than using food. Okay. So you're still going to be a scientist, but you're going to be working more on a DNA level. You know, just helping people to integrate into the new Earth frequencies, because it's going to be a big change. Okay, so that's your next life. After that one, I do think you're going to probably go back to Altair again, and then take your next assignment, which is going to be Andromeda.
Okay.
Because there's some evolution. There's some evolutionary projects that are going on with Andromeda that I'm not really privy to what it is, but it's going to be big. Okay. And I think some of that might be some integration between Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way. Because they are kind of moving closer together. Okay. So you asked some questions about your family, and I'm just looking at the time. I wanted to answer all your questions.
Just wanted to see my daughter, where she's from.
Okay.
And my husband.
Okay, so I'm going to say various star systems because you've been in a lot of star systems. I think you took on like the Taurus, the Taurus personality or the Taurus signature because that was the last place where you were at.
Okay.
Was the Taurus constellation. But you're much bigger than the typical Taurus. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mirella is Pleiadian.
Okay.
Okay. You connected with her in the Pleiades. I think you two were sisters in the Pleiades.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're a much older soul than she is. I'm seeing Lyra and Pleiades incarnations for her, but I don't see much beyond Lyra with her. Okay. But she's still an old soul. Don't get me wrong. She's not as ancient as you are, but she's old. David. Yeah, I'm kind of picking up Procyon with him.
Okay.
Is he pretty technical, or what does he do?
He's also a scientist.
Okay. Well, that fits. Yeah. So Procyon.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's, let's see if there's any more information about him. Yeah, he did a lot of technical work in the Procyon system.
Okay.
A lot of it was, started off as mechanical, but then he got more into developing science to fit the human body. Okay. Procyonians were all about developing the human body to its highest form. So a lot of Procyon starseeds are very concerned about health and wellness, but from a very scientific standpoint. Okay. So I think you picked up some of what you are doing now from Procyon. Okay. It's probably as well as Arcturus and some of your other star systems that you were in. Okay. Anything else before we close?
Yeah, so from the soul group that I'm with, is anyone there incarnated with me now?
Let's see, I think Hallie was from Andromeda Galaxy, so she wouldn't be part of your soul group. And then I'm seeing, yeah, I think there is, but I don't know who they are.
Okay.
So I think there's maybe, I think some people that you just feel this natural resonance. I think you and Hallie do know each other from past lives, and
yep.
And maybe some of your other friends that are aligned spiritually with you, but I'm only seeing one or two.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I can't really tell you who they are because I don't know them. But Hallie is more from the Andromeda Galaxy group, and that group is really different. Okay, and she's a beautiful, unique soul. Okay, so and we love her for that because she brings sparkle and just her unique energy in everything she does. So now that she's still doing her readings and all the stuff that she does something. I know some sort of
Reiki.
Reiki. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it, unless you have anything else.
One more question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Very good. No, you're fine.
Okay. So I've been aware of Archangel Metatron.
Mm-hmm.
Metatron.
Mm-hmm.
And so it appears that this lifetime I have a guide who is like is him, but
Like
split. I don't know how to explain.
Like an aspect of Metatron.
Yeah, or like if he's like his higher self kind of split his energy and became a guide. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah. So you have like these bigger souls. You have these humongous souls that are humongous, but when they act as guides, they have to pull like a soul shard of them. Like it's like they pull a piece of them, and then the piece of that soul acts as your guide. Okay, so I think Metatron, though, I think I think because he was prior human, I think he's willing to help us more than maybe some of the other angels. Not that they're not willing to help us, but they've never been human, so they don't know what it's like. Okay. So yes, I do think it's an aspect of Archangel Metatron.
Could it be possible that he would be in my soul group?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because remember when I said before you're a higher galactic angelic? That's your soul group is higher galactic angelic. Well, Metatron falls in that soul group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think, you're also a higher angelic yourself, but you chose to be in human form, and then the soul that's attached to you is only like a soul shard of the original soul. Okay,
yep.
So
is the original soul like the higher self?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes I think when you do a QHHT session and they're connecting you with your higher self, that's who's talking, is the higher self. It's not you, the human aspect of you, it's the higher self aspect. So a lot of times, when you do a QHHT session, they're asking you, they're asking the higher self, answers to questions. But yeah, it is the higher self. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close the reading. I'm going to do a closing prayer. Okay. So I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the lords of the Akashic records for their point of view, and I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Your energy goes with you, and my energy stays with me.